Hello, my name is Diamond, aka Lady Leo. Welcome to my channel if you are a brand new viewer, or welcome back if you are a returning viewer. So I'm having a great time doing some Reddit Am I the Assholes, and I also mixed in some like relationship advice stuff from that section. So we're gonna do another video and we're just gonna get started with our first story. Okay, so this one is from the relationship advice section. I, 25 female, surprised my boyfriend, 26-year-old male, only to find his ex, 24-year-old female at his house. How do I handle this? Ooh, okay. I went to drop off my boyfriend's favorite meal to him today, only to find his ex's car in the driveway. That's very nice of you to drop off his meal. I ran the door. I promise I can read. I rang the doorbell and he came outside and said, "I'm sorry. I just feel confused right now." I remember cussing him out a bit, crying and saying I didn't know how he could do this to me when we had plans for me to move in a few months. Asked him what his plan was with all of this, and then told him the part that hurt the most is the lies and the deception. He was lucky that I wasn't a violent person because he deserved to be slapped. Then I told him I would talk to him tomorrow because I realized she could see our entire interaction from his security camera monitors, and I didn't want her to witness it. How do you know she's not watching you on the security cameras. Does he have like a live feed in his house? I'm just saying. Now I'm wishing I said more, threw her out, etc. And I can't help but feeling like I want to forgive him because I love him, but feeling ashamed if I do. Any advice on if this can be salvaged or if it's worth trying to? If not, how do I move on from this? He didn't chase after me and I haven't heard from him, which almost makes it hurt more. Oh, sorry, I don't know why you made a, which almost makes it hurt more. Sorry, you put a question mark there, so I'll just read it like that. She knew we were together and had asked if we could be friends or grab a drink 2 weeks ago. I know I'm young and I live in a big city, so I could find someone else, but I really thought he was the one, and my dad told me he thought so too before he passed away. Sorry to hear about your dad. All right, so there's an update. I spoke to him on the phone this morning, as many have encouraged me to get things that I bought for the house. I'm on my way to get it this morning. He tried to get mad at me, which at that point I told him he was gaslighting narcissist who can enjoy his miserable life. I will give a bigger update, but if there is one, but I appreciate all the tough love and encouraging comments. As someone who loved him deeply, saying goodbye was something I wasn't ready for, but I'd rather not be anxiously dating someone I can't trust. All right, let me go to the second page. Final update. Just got back to my house after seeing him. I held my ground as much as possible. I went in knowing I just wanted to get my stuff and get out because the more time he had to convince and manipulate me, the more likely I would be to give in. He tried to tell me nothing happened and I just told him I didn't want to hear it. I got what was mine and drove home and called my mom. I'm still obviously upset. No one likes a breakup, but I'm excited to focus more on me. For those that believe in karma, I did find joy in the fact that he got poison ivy yesterday after I found them. Thanks, Mother Nature. Okay. I'm so confused because it feels like you're implying that they were doing something, and I'm not in any way suggesting that they weren't, but there's nothing in your post that says that they were doing anything. You came home to bring him a meal. Her car was in the driveway, and he came outside and said he was sorry. I just feel confused right now. But you didn't say like what the discussion was. Did he tell you they were sleeping together? And listen, I'm not saying that him having his ex at his house is not sus, but what did you catch them doing? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing in your post that explains if they were doing something. Did you just see her car in the driveway and I'm sorry, maybe I feel like I'm short circuiting, but like, you caught her car was in the driveway when you came to see him. He came out and told you that he was sorry and he was feeling confused. Again, not an admission that he did anything. I think there's a lot more to this story that I'm missing. Like, how long had you guys been dating? Because if you'd been dating for like 2 or 3 months, right? And sorry, let me see. Let me just see if I can go back and read it. So there was plans for you to move in to his place in a few months, right? But there's nothing about how long the two of you have been dating, right? I'm not saying, I just think that somebody having a conversation with their ex isn't necessarily a red flag, but it really depends on like the nature of the conversation. It depends on like what they were talking about and whether or not you feel like they actually were doing something, even if he told you they weren't. If he told you they weren't and you don't believe him, that's a different story. Like, and honestly, it's your choice if it's not a relationship you want to pursue. But I guess I'm just really confused because, yeah, you brought a meal to him. His ex was there. He said that he was sorry, but there's nothing in your post that said he did anything. But then you said you're really upset about the lies and the deception. So was he still having a relationship with her? I guess I'm just really confused. I feel like there's parts of the story I'm missing. So you left him, so I guess it doesn't really matter. You left him already, so good for you if that's what you wanted. I don't know. I don't feel like I have enough of the overall story to kind of like make a consensus. And yeah, so that's my 2 cents on that one. Moving along to the next one. All right, moving along to the next story. I can if I can get it. All right, this one's an Am I the Asshole? Am I the asshole for rejecting my boyfriend of 7 years' proposal? Oh, interesting. Okay, so my 29-year-old female, so I'm a 29-year-old female. Boyfriend is 31-year-old male. We've been together for 7 years. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall we've been very happy. However, there's one thing that we have always disagreed on: how I want to be proposed to. Okay. I have PTSD from a traumatic event that happened in my early 20s. Oh, okay. Just forget what I said before. Without going into too much detail, it involved a situation where I had my skirt pulled down on a crowded subway platform and a few men touched me inappropriately while I was trying to get it back on. Oh my God. Girlie, I'm so sorry. Because of this, I have always been very clear with my boyfriend that if he ever proposed, I wanted it to be private. Big public gestures where attention is on me makes me extremely anxious and can trigger panic attacks. Totally understandable and reasonable. And I've expressed how important it is for me to feel safe and comfortable during such a significant moment. This past weekend, we were out with a group of our close friends and his parents at a busy restaurant when, out of the blue, he got down on one knee and proposed in front of everyone. Completely disrespecting your wishes. I was completely caught off guard and immediately felt my anxiety spike. My chest felt tight and I wanted to throw up. I froze and all I could think about was how overwhelmed and exposed I felt in that moment. I ended up telling him I can't right now, no, and ran out of the restaurant. We hadn't even ordered yet. I Ubered home and just cried for a few hours. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, girlie. When he got back to my apartment, he was furious and accused me of embarrassing him and making him look foolish in front of our friends and family. I tried to explain that I wasn't rejecting him, but that I specifically asked for a private proposal due to my PTSD. He said this was positive and it shouldn't have mattered if I was feeling a little anxious. Whoa. I should have pulled up my big girl pants and just said yes and moved on instead of humiliating him in front of all the people in the restaurant. Let me get to the rest of this before I get too upset. Now he's not speaking to me and our friends are divided. Some say I should have just gone along with it to spare his feelings, and I talked to him afterward. Others think he was in the wrong for disregarding something so important to me. I feel terrible for how things turned out, but I also feel like he ignored my boundaries and put me in an impossible situation. Am I the asshole? No. No, you're not the asshole. You made it very clear to him why something like being proposed in public would be very traumatic for you, and he completely disregarded your feelings. Didn't care that that would be traumatic for you because it seems like it was all about him. Honestly, this would be what I'd say is a big red flag. You've been together for a long time, so obviously you would know him better than I would, but this tells me that he has a disregard for your feelings, and something like this could escalate. And I don't mean escalate in terms of violence, I just mean escalate in terms of like getting worse, and getting married might complicate that. You know, you've explained to him, I had this situation happen to me, and because of that, I developed this anxiety around the attention being on me in public, which is a very natural reaction to what happened to you, which was terrible and not your fault, by the way, just so you know. And the one thing, which is like the proposal, which is kind of really for you. I mean, yes, you're both getting married, but like when a man proposes to you, or just a partner in general, if you're in a same-sex relationship, it's really about you saying yes, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like the attention is on you in that moment. And for him to disregard your feelings, even when you told him, you know, I still want to marry you, I'm just really uncomfortable with how you did it in a way that I was not happy with. I do not think you're the asshole, so let me just start there. I do think this is a red flag, and I would say that if you've been in a relationship for a long time and you had a lot of ups and downs, you might want to think about, are there any other yellow flags or red flags that you've ignored because you guys have been together for a while? Those are only going to get worse with time. I can definitely tell you from experience, as somebody who was with someone for pretty much the same amount of time, we had a lot of issues. We had a very tumultuous relationship, and there was a lot of yellow flags that I ignored that became red flags, and I don't want that for you. And I'm just saying, if that's his reaction to something like this, which is something that happened to you, which was deeply traumatic, I don't know. I don't like his reaction to it. And again, I'm not saying you should like break up with him and throw him away. A red flag though is like something to be concerned about. And maybe for you this is like a yellow flag, but any way you spin the dice, I would say this involves like having a deeper conversation. And if he doesn't understand why the way he did it was wrong, I mean, I feel like that's a problem that you're going to need to work out, preferably before you get married, if that's still something that you both want. So yeah, definitely not the asshole. I, 33-year-old male, am a school social worker who makes $60,000. My girlfriend is a 33-year-old female who makes $100,000, and she says I'm not ambitious enough. Oh, wow. So, okay, this is going to be an interesting one. So I have a master's degree and I make $60,000 with great benefits plus summers off and winter break, etc. because you're a social worker. Oh, you're a school social worker. I think I forgot to read that part because I was like, okay, but like, why do social workers get the summer off? I get it now. Okay, I'm sorry. If I stay with this school 10 more years, I'll be making $100,000 with our current contract, but this gets negotiated and adjusted higher every few years as well. I've been dating this person for 6 months and she makes $100,000 but doesn't like her job. I wish I made more money, but otherwise I feel like my job is pretty good and I'm lucky. Okay. I'm taking more classes to move up the pay scale faster as well. She recently told me essentially that I might not be ambitious enough and she may have to dump me. She's pretty blunt with it. I mean, I guess props for honesty, but I also have been doing jujitsu 3 to 4 times a week, so I'm not a couch potato or anything in my free time. I live in the Chicagoland area and the cost of living reference I live in the Chicagoland area for cost of living reference. So it's true, I'm really barely making it, but my plan is to ride it out until I'm up the pay scale and comfortable. I could start doing private practice and sacrifice my Sundays to make decent amount more money, but I already work 40 hours a week and pretty regularly have to work off the clock already. I don't want my entire life to be work. I'm just looking for some advice and perspective. Does this seem like a valid complaint? Am I wrong for being content where I am and headed? Once I hit 65, I'll retire with a pension as well. Okay, so I've been in this situation, though at the time we were definitely making way less than you guys are. And I'll sort of explain my own situation and then just kind of talk about yours in relation. In my situation, I've had a job since I was like 15 or 16. I grew up in a dual income household with both of my parents working. So for me, it was very natural to want to work and to get a job. And, that's how I pay for things, is I have money. When I met my partner that I was with for about 7 years before we broke up, we were college sweethearts. He never had a job. And it was such an interesting thing because we came from two very different families. And I felt like I was the push in terms of like him getting a job and keeping a job, and otherwise without me, he wouldn't work. And he was totally fine with that, which I was completely perplexed by. I have looked on it with a lot more perspective as somebody who is older and has been removed from that relationship for several years. And I think it's important for you not to sit here and change everything about your own plan for yourself financially because of one person that you've only known for 6 months, right? She could also be putting off some of the things. She could be sort of, I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. She could be imprinting upon you her own feelings about her work, right? She makes a lot more money than you do, but she's not happy. And when you're not happy at your job, it kind of seeps out into other areas of your life. And depending on what you do and how unhappy you are, you can become really resentful of people who may make less than you, but are much more content at their job. So my advice to you is that you seem like you have a pretty good plan in place for what you want to do to get you making more money. I also feel like you probably know that you work in an area where you're not going to be able to make as much as she does. I don't know what she does. It doesn't say what she does. But if you are going to be able to make $100,000 in... Okay, so it says like if you stay with the school, you'll be making $100,000 after 10 years. That's a long time to get to that, but I think when you work in an industry like the school system, you guys just naturally get paid less, and you're talking about being like a college professor. And I feel like it's one of those things when you take a job in a school industry, like a public school or even a private school, sort of naturally understood that you're going to make less money than maybe some other types of job. And it seems like you've made your peace with that and you enjoy your job. So I don't know. I mean, if you want, you can get a side hustle if it's important to you. But if you're very happy with your job and your salary is something that you're happy with and you're okay with like your plan to get to making more money, I just don't really think you should completely redesign what you plan to do for yourself because of one person. Like I said, you've been dating her for 6 months. What does she bring to the table? What does she give to you? Because she's like, you're not ambitious enough, she may have to dump you. I mean, goodbye. You've only known her for 6 months. It's not make and break for your life, right? So I don't really think that does make you ambitious. Sorry. I do not think that you only making $60,000 is not ambitious. And I know I say only, but you live in a higher cost of living area. So like comparatively speaking, if you lived in somewhere like, I don't know, Oklahoma maybe. I don't know if Oklahoma's a lower cost of living, but if you lived in somewhere like Oklahoma, it may be like equivalent to 80,000. But you live in Chicago, which I'm assuming is similar to living in New York, so 60,000 isn't a lot. Again, if you really enjoy what you're doing and you're okay making less money, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if wanting to make more money for you, like in the foreseeable future, so like in the next couple of years, you could look at moving, you could look at getting a side job or going into private practice or, just like you said. So yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with your plan. I think she's pretty unhappy with her job and she's using the fact that she makes more than you as an example, like, see, I don't like my job, but I make more than you, so you can do it too. But it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Like, again, I don't know what she does for a living, but my guess is that whatever she does probably pays more than what you do. That can be how it goes, right? Like, even if I met somebody who was, I don't know, let's say a doctor, just for argument's sake, there's no way with my line of work I'm going to be able to make a comparable salary. It's just not possible. We don't work in an industry that pays the same amount of money. So for her to use the fact that she makes a lot more money than you as a way to justify that you're not being ambitious enough is not really representative. She just happens to work in an industry where she can make more money than you do. And that, if that's something you're interested, you could always be like, okay, well, how do I get your job? But if she's not happy, maybe you don't want her job. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with where you're at, buddy. I don't know if this is the right relationship for you. I mean, only you can decide that, but I would throw it away. I would be like, we're not compatible, because I feel like if she continues to stay at this job and you continue on your own plan that you had in place before you met her, it will probably become an issue later on down the line. So to me, it's a yellow flag that that's her reaction. But you know, I don't think what you're doing is wrong, and I don't think there's anything wrong with working at a job that pays less that you're happier at. It's all about what you're willing to accept and live with, especially if it's going to be the industry that you're working in until you retire. So, you know, and you're only 33, so you got another 30 years. And yeah, so no, I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're doing. All right, moving on to the next one. All right, next one is another relationship advice. Boyfriend, 33-year-old male, doesn't think he should help out with the rent because only I, 34-year-old female, have kids. How can I solve this? So looking for options on financial responsibilities. Okay. So what's your opinions on rent and utilities matters when renting with a partner with no kids? I have 2 kids and do everything myself, but I've recently asked him to give me $250 every check to help with the bills and the rent, and his answer is that he pays his car bill, insurance, and gas. Then mentioned he takes me out to eat and there are 3 of me and 1 of him, so now I'm just lost and I don't know if I'm being unreasonable. And that 3 of me come and hurt because we've been together 4 years and I thought of us as a family unit. Update. Thanks everyone. I was gaslighting myself into thinking I was being unreasonable. This is all I needed to hear. I will be leaving. So she said she's leaving. Yeah, I think that's, sorry, just to kind of understand, if you're saying that you guys have been together for 4 years, it doesn't say how long you guys have been living together. Let's just say you've been living together for 2 of those years. If he hasn't been paying the rent or any utilities and all he pays is his own car bill, insurance, and gas, yeah, I would tell him to kick rocks too. I mean, regardless of the fact that you have kids, he lives there too. And if you weren't there and the kids weren't there, he would still have to be paying rent and utilities and for food. So $250 every check, so presuming he gets paid twice a month, is really $500. That you can't live anywhere. I don't care if you live in the most low income housing, you can't live anywhere and $500 covers your rent, your utilities, food, you know, any sort of internet that you have. So yeah, it's just I don't really understand the logic here when he says he takes you out to eat and there's 3 of you. I mean, you've been together for 4 years, so presumably he would understand that you and your children are a package deal. He is dating you. He is aware that you have 2 children. This could be a situation where he doesn't even like children. He just likes you, and he's like, oh, wow, she has children. So it's probably better that you get out of it now before you invest like 10 years in your life with someone and get married or things like that. Yeah. You're not being unreasonable. I think it's interesting that you say that's all you needed to hear and you'll be leaving. I'm assuming, and I'm just going to assume because there's not a lot of information in your post, there's probably some other things that have been going on in your relationship that you're like, is this really what I want to put up with? Or just like yellow flags. And maybe this was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. But if leaving is the best thing for you and your children, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's I don't think there's anything unreasonable there's nothing unreasonable about what you're asking. You're asking for a very small amount to help you with the bills and the rent. Girlie, you better than me. I would have been like, if you're moving in with us, you're going to pay. I mean, you live here too, okay? So nobody's saying you should pay half, but you should pay some. But yeah, I digress. If it's what's best for you, good for you. All right, moving on to the last one. All right. So another relationship advice. I went pretty heavy with the relationship advice section this time. All right. So I, 32-year-old female, got kicked out from my boyfriend, 36-year-old male's house after an argument. I think he apologized and wants me back. What should I do? We'll see. So I'm a 32-year-old female and I am with my boyfriend, 36-year-old male, for 6 months. Okay, so you haven't been together very long. Moved into the house he owns 3 weeks ago. Okay, you've only been together 6 months and you moved into his house? Oh, okay, so let me finish reading before I pass judgment. Last weekend, we had a small argument over communication. He told me I'm no longer allowed to enter his house. On the same day, he changed the passcode to his house, blocked me from IG, and set up a security camera when I visited to make sure I don't steal his stuff while I packed. Wow, that's a pretty intense reaction to an argument. He immediately blocked you out of the house, changed the passcode, blocked you on IG, and set up a security camera. That's a really intense reaction. I'm staying at a friend's place this week. A couple of days later, he apologized and now wants me back. In the past 6 months, I've never seen his outbursts. He says he'll get himself a therapist and work on himself. He also said he's willing to rent his house and get us an apartment so we can have equal rights, and I don't have to worry about getting kicked out again. I'm struggling with finding the balance between forgiving him and prioritizing myself. What should I do? What's healthy forgiveness like in relationships? Too long, didn't read. I think that's what that means, but like, it doesn't make sense to me. I, 32-year-old female, got kicked out of my boyfriend's house over an argument. Oh, sorry. I guess, sorry. I understand what it means now. It's, if people don't want to read this paragraph, they can just read the sentence. That's what that is. Wow. The paragraph's not that much to read. Anyway, so what I would say to this is you've only been together 6 months. So what would have prompted you to move into his residence only having been together 6 months? To me, that's not enough time to decide you're going to combine houses, especially in a situation where you're moving into his house where you are not on any sort of documents, meaning he can kick you out. Now, depending on if you had lived there for like longer, this is going to vary by state, but even if you aren't on any documents, like in certain states, you become a tenant if you've been living there for a while. So he can't just kick you out, and he would have to process removing you like he would a tenant from the property. I would just be really curious to know, were you in a dire situation that you needed to move in with him, or 6 months? I just don't think 6 months is a lot of time to decide you're going to move in with somebody. And I guess to a certain extent, there's no set amount of time that I feel like is right, but longer than 6 months, because 6 months could be, depending on how often you go out on dates, that could be maybe like 10 to 20 dates. And I just don't think it's a lot of time to see if like living together is feasible. So I think in that regard, maybe you recognize that you moved in a little too soon. If you wanted to continue dating him, which honestly, I'm similar in age to you. I'm 35 and you're 32. I think for me, from my past relationships and the fact that I've been single for a really long time, I've had a long time to reflect on my past relationships, my own shortcomings and my own flaws in those relationships, and to learn about my deal breakers and what I am and not willing to accept. I would say that for me, if this was his reaction, I would definitely say that this is a big red flag, because it's one thing to have an argument and just be like, okay, I'm leaving, right? But for him to immediately kick you out of the house, change his passcode, block you, and put a security camera in place so that you don't steal his stuff is a very intense reaction. And I think that something like this will escalate, right? That's his reaction. You said you had a small argument. I don't know what constitutes a small argument. Were you screaming at each other, or was it just like you just didn't agree? But if that's his reaction to a small argument, what will be his reaction if you have a large argument, or if you have like a topic that you just can't come to a consensus on? I I you've only been dating him 6 months. Is it really worth you continuing this relationship? I'm just saying it hasn't been a long time. And I'm just wondering if you are interested in putting up with these outbursts, because he says he's going to therapy. And I don't know. Even if he did therapy, it's not a situation where you go to therapy after one session and you're cured. You could be going to therapy for years and still not work through all of your issues. So I think you have to ask yourself a couple of things. A, are you willing to continue this relationship knowing that he has a very short fuse and that he reacts very dramatically, intensely to small things? Again, I feel like that could escalate into a lot of different things. So you have to say, is that something that I'm willing to put up with, or is it a deal breaker? And again, are you in a situation where you need a place to stay? Because let's see here, after he kicked you out, you went to your friends, right? You stayed with your friends. So if I were you personally, I would not want to be living in an apartment with him, like both on the lease. I'm a big fan of not being dependent on other people if at all possible. So if it was you, if I was you, I would get my own apartment with just my name on it. And again, if wanting to pursue a relationship with him is something you want to do, you have your own space. He cannot just kick you out of the space. It's your space, so you can tell him when and if he comes over. I would not sign a lease with him. I would not get an apartment with him. And if I'm being fully honest, if it was me, it would be the end of the relationship. If that's his reactionship to a small argument. It's only been 6 months, and I don't need that kind of stress in my life. But that's just me speaking to you for who I am as a person now. And my threshold for drama is incredibly low. I just don't have the bandwidth for drama. So that would be my 2 cents. But hopefully you take all of that into account and you don't just get back in a relationship with him, and certainly not in a situation where you're living with him together as well. Again, get your own place, have your own space, pay your own bills, so that he doesn't have any control over being able to just lock you out of the house. But that's my 2 cents. Like, comment, subscribe. That's my time. Bye.